One week before my son's wedding, I discovered something shocking. I wasn't the honored mother of the groom. I was being treated as the full-time, unpaid servant for their big day. Before I tell you everything I want to hear from you, if you were in my shoes, how would you react? Share your feelings in the comments and let me know where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss more true stories like this. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 68 years old and I live in a small town in Ohio. I've been a widow for over 15 years since my husband Jack passed away from cancer. For decades, I worked as a librarian, always believing that family was the most sacred thing in life. So when my only son David told me he was marrying Melissa, my heart lit up. I thought, finally, my boy has found happiness again. I threw myself into preparations as if it were my life's mission. The buffet for hundreds of guests, the flowers, the hall decorations, I took it all on. I even sold part of my retirement stocks to free up $30,000, just so the wedding would be perfect. To me, this wasn't just an event. It was my gift to David, my way of proving he would never walk alone. For weeks, my kitchen was filled with the scent of fresh bread, roasted chicken, and apple pies as I tested recipes late into the night. My neighbors teased me, "Meg, are you preparing a White House state dinner or a wedding?" I just laughed, though. Deep inside, I was proud. Proud that my hands, my effort, and my savings would shape a day meant to be remembered forever. But pride came with an uneasiness I couldn't ignore. Melissa was always polite, always smiling, calling me Mom with practiced sweetness, bringing me flowers as if she knew exactly how to disarm me. Yet sometimes that smile felt rehearsed too smooth, too deliberate. I brushed it off. Maybe it was just age making me suspicious. Still, little things started to sting. No one asked what I wanted to wear. No one discussed where I'd sit or how I'd be honored. Instead, my role was quietly decided for me to cook, to decorate, to organize. It was as if I wasn't David's mother at all, but a hired staff member. The cruelest irony, I wasn't being paid a dime. I was the one paying for everything. By the time the invitations were printed, I felt like a ghost haunting my own son's wedding. I stayed silent, forcing a smile whenever Melissa praised my dedication. But deep down, something inside me was stirring a storm I had been holding back for far too long. And little did I know that storm would soon break wide open. I thought the uneasiness I felt was just my imagination. But then came the afternoon that stripped away every illusion I had left. It was a Tuesday warm and still the kind of afternoon when the world seems to move a little slower. I was at the kitchen counter, hands dusted in flour, kneading dough for yet another test batch of rolls. Through the open window, I could hear voices drifting in from the back porch. At first, I paid no attention. David was on the phone with a client, and Melissa's sister Cynthia had come in from Chicago for the wedding. Their laughter floated in light and girlish. But then I heard my name. I froze, hands suspended in the dough, every nerve suddenly on edge. Melissa's voice, sugar-sweet as always when she spoke to me, was now sharp, confident, almost smug. "Everything's perfectly organized for the kids at the wedding," she told Cynthia. "We'll have about a dozen, maybe 15, ranging from toddlers to teenagers. And guess what David's mom is going to handle them all night?" Cynthia let out a laugh that sliced right through me. "That's brilliant. The old lady will be too busy chasing kids to meddle in anything important." The words hit me like a slap. My chest tightened. I leaned closer to the window, careful not to make a sound, my heart pounding so hard I thought they might hear it. Melissa went on, her tone turning colder with every sentence. "This way we adults can finally enjoy ourselves. Drinks, dancing, conversation without constant interruptions. She won't even realize we're using her. She's so eager to help. It's like having a professional nanny for free." They both laughed again, louder this time, and the sound cut through me worse than any insult ever could. I looked down at my flour-covered hands, trembling. There I was, pouring thousands of dollars and endless hours into their wedding, only to be reduced to a free babysitter, my worth measured not by love or respect, but by how useful I could be to keep children out of their way. I thought of Jack, my late husband, and his words came back to me like a ghost. "Meg, don't ever let your kindness be mistaken for weakness." At that moment, weakness was exactly what they saw. Cynthia chimed in again, mocking, "At least your mother-in-law will be useful for once." Useful. That word burned. I wasn't family. I wasn't a guest of honor. I was useful. I slipped the curtain back in place and stepped away from the window. My legs felt weak, but my anger kept me upright. 70 years of giving, raising a son alone, surviving widowhood, paying for a wedding that wasn't even mine, and still I was nothing but a tool to them. I walked upstairs, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the framed photo of David as a little boy, his gap-toothed smile beaming back at me. I had built my life around that child, only to discover that my love was now taken for granted, twisted into obligation. In that silence, I made myself a promise: if they wanted to use me, they were going to learn the price of underestimating a woman who had already survived more than they could ever imagine. The storm inside me had finally found its voice. That night, sleep never came. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the sound of Melissa's mocking laughter still echoing in my head. A professional nanny for free. At least she'll be useful. Those words replayed like a broken record, each one slicing deeper than the last. I turned to the nightstand where Jack's photo sat in its silver frame. His kind eyes stared back at me, the same eyes that once reassured me through the hardest years of widowhood. I could almost hear his voice, calm and steady. "Meg, never let anyone take your kindness for weakness." He told me that so many times, and yet here I was letting them do exactly that. A wedding that should have been a day of honor was about to turn me into invisible staff. My role wasn't mother of the groom, it was unpaid help, a servant in pearls. The realization was like ice water poured over my soul. I pressed the photo to my chest and whispered into the dark, "Jack, what would you want me to do?" The silence of the house answered me. At 2 a.m., I gave up on trying to sleep. I pulled on my robe, padded down the hallway, and picked up the phone. There was only one person I could call at that hour who wouldn't judge me: Dorothy. She had been my friend for more than 40 years, a retired school teacher with a sharp tongue and a heart of gold. She answered on the second ring, groggy but concerned. "Meg, is everything all right?" "No," I admitted, my voice breaking. "I overheard them today. Melissa and Cynthia. They've planned the whole wedding around me being their babysitter. Not a guest, not a mother, a babysitter." And they laughed, Dorothy. They laughed about it. There was a long pause. Then Dorothy's tone sharpened. "Meg, listen to me. You've spent your entire life giving, and they've mistaken that for weakness. It's time you show them who you really are." Her words struck something inside me, something that had been waiting too long to rise. I sat there gripping the receiver, feeling the anger in me transform into something else: clarity. I realized I had a choice. I could stay silent, let them use me, let them strip away the last shred of dignity I had. Or I could remind them that Margaret Collins was nobody's fool. For the rest of the night, I sat at the kitchen table, sketching not menus or centerpieces this time, but a plan they would never see coming. Every candlelit reception, every buffet dish, every floral arrangement they thought they had secured through me, gone, replaced by something far more valuable: my dignity. By dawn, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the first light of morning, creeping through the blinds. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a woman who had drawn her line in the sand. And for the first time in years, I was ready to fight. By the time the sun came up that morning, my decision was sealed. The tears had dried, the anger had cooled into something sharper: resolve. They wanted to turn me into a silent servant, but I was about to show them just how loud silence could be. The first step was practical. I picked up the phone and began dialing vendors one by one. My voice was steady, polite, almost cheerful. "Good morning, this is Margaret Collins. I'm calling to cancel the catering order for Saturday." I gave the excuse of a sudden health issue, something vague enough that no one could question too deeply. The florist, the bakery, even the string quartet Melissa had bragged about, I canceled them all. Some tried to charge me fees, but I didn't care. A few hundred lost was worth every penny compared to the price of my dignity. When I hung up the last call, my kitchen felt eerily quiet. For months, it had been filled with the noise of planning lists, orders, deliveries. Now there was nothing. It was as if I had erased myself from their perfect picture. And for the first time, I felt free. That afternoon, I called Dorothy. "Pack a bag," I told her. "We're going away this weekend." She laughed, delighted, and immediately agreed. Together, we booked a lakeside resort in Michigan 2 hours away. A spa package, a room with a balcony overlooking the water meals cooked for us instead of by us. While Melissa expected me to be sweating in a kitchen or chasing children, I would be soaking in a hot tub with champagne. Still, I had to keep my mask on. David called that evening, his voice full of excitement. "Mom, how's everything coming along? Do you need me to help with anything?" I forced a smile he couldn't see through the phone. "Everything is perfect, sweetheart. Don't worry about me. Just focus on your big day." He sighed in relief, and I could almost hear the pride in his voice. "You're incredible, Mom. I don't know how to thank you." If only he knew. Later that night, I confided in Henry, my older brother. He had served in the Marines, a man of discipline and few words, but always my protector. I told him what I'd overheard, what I planned to do. He didn't flinch. Instead, he placed his weathered hand over mine and said, "Meg, don't let them walk over you. You've carried enough for this family. It's time they learn what happens when you underestimate a Collins." His words steadied me. For years, I had been the quiet one, the giver, the peacemaker. But blood runs deep, and Henry reminded me that strength was part of my inheritance, too. As I packed my suitcase with Dorothy later that week, slipping in my favorite coral dress and a book I hadn't touched in years, I felt lighter. Every zipper pulled closed was another weight lifted off my shoulders. The game had changed, and this time I was the one writing the rules. Saturday morning arrived with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The air was cool, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and gold. While the rest of town was buzzing with wedding day excitement, I was slipping my suitcase into the trunk of Dorothy's old Buick. My hands didn't tremble. My heart didn't ache. For once, I felt completely in control. Before leaving, I placed a single envelope on the kitchen table, the same table where David had eaten his breakfast as a boy, the same spot where he used to set down his backpack after school. On the outside, I wrote his name. Inside, my words were simple but sharp. "David, I love you, but I will not be your free nanny. I canceled the buffet, the flowers, and everything else you assumed I would provide. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I hope your wedding is everything you and Melissa planned without me." I pressed the note flat with my palm, then walked out the door without looking back. By the time David and Melissa were greeting their guests, Dorothy and I were 2 hours away, driving up the tree-lined road that led to our lakeside resort in Michigan. While they scrambled for hors d'oeuvres and child wranglers, I was stepping into a lobby that smelled of cedar and lavender, greeted by a receptionist who handed us champagne flutes. It didn't take long for the phone calls to start. My cell buzzed relentlessly in my purse, vibrating like a trapped bee. 17 missed calls in the first hour, then 20 more. I let it ring until curiosity got the better of me. When I finally answered, David's voice was frantic. "Mom, where are you?" The caterers never showed, the kids are running wild, and Melissa is in tears. What happened? I leaned back into the cushioned spa chair as a masseuse pressed warm stones along my spine. My voice was calm, almost amused. "I'm having a massage, honey. Hope your wedding goes well." There was silence on the other end, followed by Melissa's voice in the background, shrill and desperate. "She can't do this to us. There are 150 guests here. We need her." For once, their panic didn't shake me. I sipped from my glass of cucumber water, closed my eyes, and let the chaos wash over me like a distant storm. Meanwhile, I pictured it all: children racing through the reception hall, upending decorations, guests whispering in confusion as waiters explained there was no buffet, Melissa's carefully planned image crumbling before her very eyes. And in the center of it all, David torn between loyalty to his bride and the realization that his own mother had finally said no. The calls kept coming, but I stopped answering. For 70 years, I had been at everyone's beck and call. That day, for the first time, I chose myself. And as the sun dipped low over the lake, I realized something: profound freedom sometimes comes dressed not in celebration, but in absence. Back at the resort, I lay in a robe sipping tea with Dorothy as the lake shimmered in the distance. My phone buzzed nonstop on the table beside me, but I let it rest there, muted. Every vibration felt like confirmation that my silence was speaking louder than all the words I'd swallowed for years. Meanwhile, the chaos I had once been expected to manage erupted in full force. Guests at the reception sat at empty tables, glancing around in confusion when no food arrived. Eventually, a frazzled usher made the humiliating announcement that the buffet had been delayed. In reality, David ended up ordering stacks of pizza boxes carried in by delivery boys in baseball caps. Can you imagine hundreds of dollars spent on flowers gowns, photographers only for greasy cardboard boxes to be placed on linen-covered tables? Children ran wild without anyone to corral them. One boy knocked over an entire centerpiece. Another spilled soda all over Melissa's designer gown, leaving a sticky stain that no amount of blotting could fix. Guests whispered behind their napkins, some laughed, others left early shaking their heads at the fiasco. Melissa's composure crumbled. Between tears and shrieks, she turned on David in front of everyone. "This is your fault. You promised your mother would handle everything." Her perfect smile, the one she had used to charm me for 2 years, was gone. In its place stood the woman I had always suspected lurked beneath entitled, angry, careless. The tension became unbearable. And then Pastor John, the minister who was supposed to bless the union, stepped forward. He had seen enough. Clearing his throat, he spoke not just to the couple, but to the entire room. Marriage is built on respect. If you cannot honor your own mother, the woman who gave you life, how can you claim to honor each other? Today should have been filled with gratitude, not selfishness. This chaos you see around you, it isn't bad luck. It is the fruit of dishonor. His words cut through the noise like a blade. The room fell silent. Melissa's father, Mr. Harris, who had watched the disaster unfold with growing embarrassment, stood up as well. His face was red not from anger alone, but from shame. He looked directly at his daughter, his voice heavy. "Melissa, your mother-in-law deserved respect. This disgrace is on you, not her. You turned generosity into exploitation, and now everyone sees the result." The humiliation was unbearable for her. Guests avoided her eyes. Whispers spread faster than the spilled soda. David looked pale, caught between defending his bride and realizing he had allowed this humiliation to unfold by enabling her schemes. And me, I wasn't there to witness it firsthand. But when Dorothy read me the first frantic text from a cousin Meg, "You wouldn't believe what's happening," I pictured every detail. And I smiled, not out of cruelty, but out of justice. Sometimes the loudest lesson is taught in absence. 3 days passed before David finally appeared at my front door. I had just finished watering the roses in the yard when I saw his car pull up, headlights still on, though the afternoon sun was bright. He stepped out slowly, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast. For the first time since he was a boy, he looked small. "Mom," he said, his voice hoarse, "can we talk?" I let him in. Dorothy was already sitting in my kitchen sipping tea, and Henry had dropped by earlier to check on me. They stayed silently, as if they knew their presence mattered. David sat at the table, the very spot where I'd left the letter, and rested his head in his hands. "I owe you an apology. I didn't just let Melissa disrespect you. I disrespected you too. I treated you like staff instead of family. I let your generosity blind me, and I went along with it because it was convenient." His words cracked something inside me. For years, I'd wanted acknowledgement, not flowers, not thanks, just the truth. Finally, he was saying it. "You're my mother," he continued, "and I acted like you were a free employee. I'll never forgive myself for letting it get this far." I took a breath, steady but firm. David, love without respect isn't love. You don't get to honor me only when it suits you. If you want me in your life, you'll treat me like family, not staff. That means if you need something, you ask. You don't assume. And if I say no, you accept it. He nodded, tears welling. "I understand. I'll never make that mistake again." But the real test came later that evening. Melissa showed up at my house uninvited, but clearly pushed by her father's scolding and the whispers circling town. She wasn't smiling now. Her voice was brittle, her posture defensive. "I came to apologize," she said flatly. "I shouldn't have said what I said about you. It was wrong. I studied her carefully, letting the silence stretch until she shifted uncomfortably. "Melissa," I said, "this isn't about saving face. It's about how you truly see me. If you want this marriage to last, you will respect me as David's mother, not as free labor. There won't be another chance. One more slip, and whatever bond we might have will be broken." Her lips tightened, but she nodded. "I understand." Henry's arms folded across his chest broke the silence. "She means it, Melissa. This family has survived too much to let entitlement tear it apart." Dorothy, gentle but firm, added, "Respect is the only currency that matters in a family. Without it, love turns sour." Melissa lowered her gaze. For once she had no sharp reply, no charm to hide behind. As she left, I felt the air in my house shift. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. I had drawn the line clear and unshakable, and now, whether they liked it or not, they knew exactly where I stood. After Melissa left that evening, my house felt different, lighter, though the air still carried the weight of everything said. I knew apologies alone wouldn't fix years of assumption and disrespect, but I had done something I'd never dared before I had drawn the line, and once you draw it, you don't erase it. Over the weeks that followed, I began to notice small changes. David no longer called with expectations hidden inside his words. Instead, he asked, "Mom, would you like to join us for dinner, or do you feel up to helping with the garden this weekend?" And when I said no, he didn't push. For the first time in years, my refusals weren't met with guilt. They were met with respect. Melissa, too, shifted in her own halting way. I later learned her father had insisted she attend counseling sessions, urging her to confront her attitudes toward older women. To my surprise, she agreed. She told me one afternoon, eyes nervous but genuine, "I'm learning I projected my fears onto you. I lost my mom young, and instead of mourning her, I started resenting anyone who reminded me of her. That wasn't fair to you." It didn't erase the past, but it was a step toward something better. Meanwhile, I found my own rebirth. With Dorothy and Henry cheering me on, I began writing again. Not recipes this time, but memories. Stories of love, survival, boundaries, and lessons earned the hard way. A year later, I published them in a book I titled Standing Tall at 68. Holding that book in my hands felt like reclaiming every piece of myself I had once given away too easily. Then almost exactly 1 year after the disastrous wedding, David and Melissa welcomed their first child. They brought the baby to me eyes soft with a respect I hadn't seen in years. David asked Mom, "What role do you want as a grandma?" "We don't want to assume. We want you to choose." That simple question undid me. It wasn't about babysitting or favors. It was about freedom, about finally being seen. I held my granddaughter in my arms and said, "I'll be the kind of grandma who loves fiercely, but on my terms. I'll read her stories, I'll bake her cookies, but I won't raise her for you. That's your job." Melissa nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "That's more than enough. Looking back now, I see the lesson clearly. Family love is powerful, but it cannot thrive without dignity. To give endlessly without boundaries is not love, it's servitude. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. At 68, I discovered something I wish I'd known sooner. You can honor your family and still honor yourself. And when you do, the respect you teach them is a legacy far greater than any buffet bouquet or babysitting duty could ever be.